Picture this. You go to the movie theater, buy your ticket, and find a seat. The lights dim, the projector begins to roll, and before the first trailer plays, you see that familiar green screen telling you, "The following preview has been approved to accompany this feature by the Motion Picture Association of America."
Now might be a good time to tell you all about the Motion Picture Association of America's fascinating rating system. Now, if a family wants to see a movie and it's rated G, then everyone can go. Mom and Dad and Buffy and Jody and Grandma and Grandpa and even Sergeant Scruffy. If it's PG, then there might be something unsuitable for young or sensitive viewers, in which case Buffy will just have to stay home, along with Grandma, who didn't want to go to the movies anyway. Now, if the movie's rated PG-13, then...
Jack, we're ready for the next scene. You're gonna have to wait.
No, please, I beg you, let me finish. This is very, very important.
Huh, would you look at that? It's former head of the MPAA, Jack Valenti. Freakazoid, did you get out of here? Now, what were you saying, Mr. Valenti?
Now, if the movie's rated PG-13, it might have some material in there that Mommy and Daddy might not like some of the young kids to see, so Jody might just have to stay home. Bye-bye, Jody. Now, if the movie's rated R, then it's going to contain some adult material, in which case a dad who's got a lazy tummy will probably want to stay home. But if the movie's rated NC-17, that means that kids can't get in, only adults can get in. Mom doesn't want to see adult movies, but Grandpa was in the Army, and he's not bothered very much, and so he decides to stay along with Sergeant Scruffy, who's just a dumb dog anyway. I hope that explains it. Now, back to the cartoon.
Now, with that in mind, you may find yourself asking, who determines the rating system and who enforces it? That, of course, would be the aforementioned Motion Picture Association of America. The MPAA is a trade association that represents the 6 major studios in Hollywood, and depending on who you ask, are either the biggest proponents of censorship in the American film industry and are more of a lobbyist group than anything, or they are truly the champions of American decency. To understand the scope and effect that the MPAA has on the film industry, we must look all the way back to its inception.
The time was 1922. Warren G. Harding was president, national treasure Betty White had just been born, prohibition was going strong, and morality reigned supreme. Shocking celebrity scandals such as the unsolved murder of William Desmond Taylor and the ongoing rape case against Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, coupled with the sensationalist reporting of the time, caused the major Hollywood studios to band together and form what was then called the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America. This original association's main goal was to smooth out public relations and to attract investors from Wall Street to help keep Hollywood financially viable. Former Postmaster General William H. Hayes was named the first president of the MPPDA in 1922.
During this time, there was no form of national censorship, but certain states had enacted laws requiring films to be censored in regards to such things as on-screen violence and sexuality. This was usually overseen by local censorship boards, with half of Americans living in areas governed by such boards by 1929. Throughout the 1920s, Hayes, who was highly outspoken against public censorship, tried and failed twice to enact a form of self-regulatory moral code. Once in 1924 with The Formula, a loose guideline for filmmakers to address issues consistently brought up by local censorship boards, and again in 1927 with The Don'ts and Be Carefuls, a list of possible issues films could encounter in different areas of the country. With no consequences for failure to follow either of these guides, they were largely ignored. Starting in 1934, the MPPDA successfully instated the Production Code, also known as the Hayes Code, which included many of the don'ts and be carefuls as a moral guideline for what was and was not acceptable for American films. This was the first guideline widely endorsed by studio executives. The success of the Hayes Code hinged on mounting pressure from organizations such as the Catholic Legion of Decency, threatening to boycott films they deemed to be immoral, as well as the creation of the Production Code Administration, who oversaw enforcement of the code and whose judgment was binding. No films could be screened in American theaters without the approval of the PCA, or producers could face a fine of up to $25,000. The first major revision to the Production Code came in 1956 at the hands of former president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Eric Johnston, who replaced Hayes as the head of the MPPDA in 1945 and rebranded the organization to the MPAA that we all know and hate today. The biggest change to the way the MPAA censored film content came when the organization hired former aide to President Lyndon B. Johnson, Jack Valenti, in 1966.
Hello, I'm Jack Valenti, and these are my cheeks.
Yes, we already established that. In 1968, Valenti would abolish the production code entirely and replace it with a voluntary ratings guide that is still used to this day. This new guide sought to limit any form of censorship for filmmakers while also informing parents what may or may not be appropriate for younger viewers. While being completely voluntary, many modern filmmakers still see the MPAA's ratings guide as a strong form of censorship, as the higher rating a film receives can hinder the marketability and profitability of a film, with all major cinema chains refusing to screen any films rated NC-17 or unrated at all. Just ask South Park's Matt Stone.
Jack Valenti's been very good and publicly about, we serve the public, we serve the parents, it's like crap. They serve the studios. That's who pays their bills. That's who they are. I mean, they are the studios.
Orgasmo!
When we did Orgasmo, which was completely independently financed, they gave us an NC-17. You know, we got this phone call with the MPAA, and the guy would basically say, it's for the overall sexual content. I said, was there anything we can cut out to get an R? You know, you're welcome to recut it and send it back to us, and we'll certainly look at it again. And their whole position was, when we did this film, was we don't give specific notes, because then we'd be a censorship organization. We just give you the rating. And cut to 5 years later, we're doing the South Park movie, and now we're working for Paramount, it's a big studio. And we turned in the first cut of the movie, and we get a phone call, and you got an NC-17. Well, you need to cut out this, change this to this, and it was extremely specific. This word, this line, this joke. So our treatment was a completely different experience.
The one exception to this being, of course, 1995's Showgirls, the only NC-17 film to receive a wide release in the United States. Since the introduction of the ratings guide, the MPAA's hold on moral decency in American film has held strong and remained largely unchallenged. And in more recent years, the organization has shifted its focus towards using its ties to Washington to lobby for stricter anti-piracy laws, even going so far as to threaten to cut campaign contributions to politicians who fail to support anti-piracy laws such as SOPA and PIPA after the bill's failure in 2012. So as you can see, while never enacted into federal law, censorship has always existed in the American film industry, going by many names and even presenting itself in the form of helpful suggestions or optional guidelines. The MPAA continues to this day as the self-proclaimed champions of moral decency. And sadly, there seems to be no signs of change in the future.